This week on the Texas Sports Hall of Fame podcast, we have part one of the Lone Star Luncheon with Art Briles and Bryce Petty. Enjoy.
We'll be right back to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame podcast after this message from our sponsors.
This episode is presented by the Hampton Inn Waco. When you come to Waco, be sure to stay at the Hampton Inn Waco. Located just a short distance from the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, you'll start your day off with a delicious complimentary breakfast, and you'll also enjoy the Hampton Inn's free Wi-Fi, fitness center, and pool. Next time you suit up and bring your team to Waco, make the Hampton Inn Waco your home base on the road.
Now back to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame podcast.
It is time for kickoff. Welcome to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, the first state sports Hall of Fame in the country, and still one of the best. In fact, you may or may not know this, the Texas Sports Hall of Fame was recently named one of the top 10 sports attractions in the country by USA Today's People's Choice Poll. We were the only attraction in the state of Texas, a sports attraction that made that top 10. So congrats to Waco, congrats to our Board of Trustees and our museum. And it's only fitting that today we have a top 10 coach and quarterback here that we're going to celebrate, and 2 great years of Baylor football. We are commemorating what are likely the 2 greatest seasons in Baylor football history, the 2013 and 2014 back-to-back Big 12 championship years. First time that had ever happened. And the architect of those 2 teams and the quarterback are here with us today. You might not have heard earlier, this is the largest crowd we have ever had for one of our Lone Star Luncheons. This is the 8th one. We've had big names, Lee Trevino, Roger Clemens, Mean Joe Green, Vern Lundquist, the world champion Texas Rangers. But today we're celebrating 2 of the biggest names, Art Briles and Bryce Petty. Of course, we could not do this without our sponsors. We'd like to recognize our presenting co-sponsors, Central National Bank and Community Bank and Trust. Thank you, gentlemen. And then we have a group of silver sponsors, First National Bank of Central Texas, Les and Lana Palmer, Debbie and Jim Sartin, Chad E. Cunningham, Elevated Properties, the Luce Law Firm, the First National Bank, and a group name that I love, former players calling themselves the Stud Ducks. Thank you to all the silver sponsors. We've got some special guests here today. Before we get to our most special guest, joining us, legendary coach Grant Taft, 21 seasons, 128 wins. Coach Taft. "21 seasons, 128 wins, the most ever for Baylor football. And now he's partnering with the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, the Grant Taft Foundation, for the Beyond the Game Award, honoring high school athletes across the state of Texas for their community service, what goes on outside the line. So, Grant, thank you so much. So how about that? We've got the 2 greatest coaches ever in Baylor history in one room at the same time. That's pretty awesome. So now we also have a number of former Baylor football players here. If you played for Grant Taft, please stand up so we can see you. And that table in the middle, those were the Stud Ducks, just in case you were wondering. Yeah. All right. We've also got other Baylor football players. If you played for Art Briles, please stand up and be recognized. Gentlemen, thank you for your service, all former Baylor football players who are here. And now we also could not do this without the guidance and assistance of the Texas Sports Hall of Fame Board of Trustees. If you're a Board of Trustee here at the museum, please stand and be recognized. Thank you. They all selflessly serve to keep this museum going and being something that Waco would be proud of, and they have done that. All right, now it's time for the really fun stuff. Our first guest up here on stage, he took over as the starting quarterback in the 2013 season, his junior year. That year, he passed for 4,200 yards and 32 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. And all those numbers, while I think he only played a full game 4 times all year. He was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, led the Bears to an 11-2 season. They started out 9-0. How much fun was that? And so 2014, he had another great season, led the Bears to another 11-2 record and a share of their second straight conference title. We'll talk about more of that in a little bit. He threw for a record 550 yards in the Cotton Bowl. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bryce Petty. Oh, there we go. All right, and also joining us on stage, a gentleman who started his head coaching career when he was 28 years old in Class 2A Hamlin in West Texas, where he lost only 1 game in 2 seasons. He was 27-1-1, and that was his debut. He won back-to-back state titles 2 different times at Stephenville High School in the 90s, now has a stadium there named for him. He turned around the program at the University of Houston, and then he came to Waco and did it again. Baylor hadn't played in a bowl game in 13 years, and in 8.5 seasons, he led the Bears to 4 years of 10 wins or more and 6 bowl games in those 8 years, 6 straight after the first 2 years. He closed one stadium with a conference title and opened the other one with another conference title. How cool is that? He put Baylor football back on the map. Please welcome Coach Art Briles. All right, guys, we got a big crowd here, so when you talk in the mic, hold the mic close. Okay. Can you hear back in the back okay? You good? All right, wonderful. We are delighted to have both of you here, obviously, for this huge crowd. Art, your reaction to all these people coming to see you?
Well, it's very heartwarming, to say the least. First of all, Coach Taft, thank you for being here. To be in the same room and recognize at the same time as you are is a tremendous honor for me as a coach, because, he mentioned coming up, my first head coaching job was in 1984. Excuse me. And so I've watched Coach Taft all my life, from McMurray to Baylor, and then what he's done at the AFCA. And his grandson is actually a great football coach, Josh. And so it's a real privilege. My definition of stud has changed a little after looking at the stud ducks today. But, other than that, we're in pretty good shape. But no, this is extremely, gratifying, heartwarming, and just touches my soul. And it's a great privilege and honor to be here with y'all, and then with Bryce and the former players that are here. So I appreciate you guys and love you.
All right, great, Coach. You were at the University of Houston in 2006. You interviewed for the Iowa State job, and thank God you didn't get that.
How do you know that? Huh? That actually got me in trouble. I never interviewed when I was here at Baylor. I can say that straight-faced, but not officially. But that one I did. I did go. I went to Dallas and met with them, and that was in like December of '06. I went like on a Wednesday night right before Thanksgiving. We played that Friday night for the conference championship, and won it. But it didn't work out. They hired Chisnick, maybe. Yep. Yeah, Gene Chisnick, and we actually beat them here my first year at Baylor. So that was a good deal. But no, those things. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, but it all worked out. I love the University of Houston and love my time at Baylor.
Yeah. So the next year in 2007, you came to Baylor. You interviewed. They didn't waste any time. The next day, they offered you a 7-year contract, and you accepted. What did you tell that interview committee?
I'm not sure it's 7 years. It might have been seven weeks. It was really, the committee was just Ian and Todd Patowski. Those are the only two guys or gentlemen that I met with, and we met up here in Dallas. We had our old 7-year at Houston wasn't quite as good. I had Kevin Cobb, who was a great quarterback. I coached him all 4 years in Houston. And Case Keenum was our quarterback in '07. Case is a guy that I'd known really most of my life. His dad and I had known each other, and I was his only scholarship offer. Great player, had great instincts. Kind of reminded me of Nick Florence a little bit, just a real sharp guy, could see things when they weren't happening, and really understood the game, got a lot out of his talent. But, we saw Ian, saw Todd, and it just kind of hit, kind of clicked. I wanted to get in the Big 12 because I'd been at Houston. At that time, they were in Conference USA, which was a great conference, had Louisville, South Florida, Memphis, SMU. It was a good league, but if I was recruiting a guy and had a choice between here or there, he was going to go Big 12. And really, Dominique Ziegler is the example that I use some, because I thought we could get Dominique at Houston, and he decided to come to Baylor. So I knew Texas, I knew Waco, I knew the high school coaches since I'd been one for 21 years. Prior to that, would help us, and it just worked out. Got here at a good time, and got RG3, got some other great players go with him, great old lineman, D lineman, and just kind of built some momentum and got it going.
You obviously have a great eye for talent. The guy sitting to your right is one of those. Bryce Petty, Robert Griffin, you mentioned. So many great players coming through. Coach, what's the first thing you look for when you were evaluating players to recruit them?
I always, and really, I would watch tape with the guys, the coaches, and I'd always tell them, you can see what you want to see. If I want the guy to look good, I can find places that makes him look good. If I want him to, be not worthy, then I can find reasons for him to be not worthy. So the thing I would always look for, particularly with quarterbacks, was their sideline demeanor. Not so much on the field play, but how they interacted on the sideline, how they acted when they, came off the field after a good play or bad play, because that's a guy that everybody else is going to be looking at, and so you have to have great body language. And all these people that we mentioned, Bryce, Seth Russell's back there, tremendous player. His career got cut short in 15. Nick, Robert, we had Jarrett Stidham here for a little bit. All those guys are top-notch people.
Robert Griffin said he followed you from Copper's Cove to Houston and then came to Baylor. He said you told him when you came to Baylor, he said, Robert, you're going to win the Heisman Trophy. How'd you know that?
Well, I was trying to get him to come to Baylor. So he shouldn't have such a good memory. But no, Robert was very unique. We recruited him out of Copper's Cove, knew his high school coach a little bit, Jack Welch, and everybody's recruiting him as a DB or receiver. The only guy that wasn't was Harbaugh. Harbaugh was at Stanford then. They offered him as quarterback. We brought him to camp in Houston, and I watched him throw one time, actually. And we had about, 350 kids there, probably 75, 80 quarterbacks. And I told Montgomery, who was our quarterback coach, and I said, don't let him throw again. I said, don't let him do it, because there's a lot of other coaches in there at those camps, to come to watch the athletes. I said, somebody's going to get after him. This guy's good now. He could run. I knew he could run, but I didn't realize he could throw that well. And, so it just worked out. His mom and dad were military. He was very disciplined. He graduated 7th out of about 460 at Copper's Cove. The only guy that was hiring, I don't know if Nick's here. Nick Florence, are you here? He may not be here, but Nick, actually, it's what made him really good is he graduated salutatorian out of like 780, his high school class. So just very intelligent. And, those kind of guys you can, like Petty, whatever, Seth, you tell them one time, you don't have to tell them again. So they pick it up, they're ready to go, and, here we do it. But I thought if Robert could ever get on the big stage, which we didn't have the big stage, in Waco the first 3 years, 8, 9, and 10. 10 we make a bowl game, kind of lay egg in Houston against Iowa. But, we won, we beat Texas at Texas for the first time in a long time, like 30-21. But I knew if he could get on the big stage that the other people would see what we all knew. All the players that are around him, coaches, people, kind of endearing personality. And we had that game against TCU to start the season in 11 when they were coming off a Rose Bowl victory, like, I don't know what they were, 4th or 5th in America. And we were unranked, of course. And I think Stork hit a game winner, from about 42 or 3 yards, to win it late. And, we got on game day the next day because we played like on a Thursday night. And he got on game day that Saturday. It might have been a Friday, I can't remember. But then everybody got seen. So the elevation just took off.
So, Bryce, we heard how he recruited RG3. You have a little bit different recruiting story. You went to Tennessee to tell that story, and then you came back to Baylor. And how did he recruit you?
Well, I think I was actually number 3 out of 840 in Midlothian, so I've got some academia too. Just not the salutatorian or whatever you said. We were focused on other things. I was focused on football. No, that's not true.
Okay,
I absolutely made that up.
Petty.
No, I don't even know what salutatorian is. It sounds like a salad.
Maybe.
But I got lucky, man. It originally committed to Tennessee out of high school. I grew up, my family's from Louisiana, so we always grew up, watching LSU football, and we lived in Arkansas, for 9 years, and so we were either, calling Hogs or LSU. So I didn't have a whole lot of the Texas football footprint, and we ended up moving to Texas with Dad's job here, and that kind of got me inundated with all things Texas, but I didn't really care about UT or A&M or, Texas Tech, TCU, Baylor, or whatnot. So my whole dream was to be in the SEC, and so got a chance to, like I said, get an offer from Tennessee and took it, and then we ended up, that was right when Fulmer signed a 7-year extension. My official visit to Knoxville was when Tim Tebow came and hung 55 up on the Volunteers, and so that was at 100,000 people cheering before kickoff is great. By the fourth quarter when they're booing, I was looking at Dad going, dang, man, this ain't as cool as it sounds. And but anyways, Fulmer ends up getting let go, and Lane Kiffin came in, and this was about December. Most quarterbacks had kind of already picked their spot. Most rosters were already kind of there, but Coach Montgomery, who was our OC at the time, was in my coach's office that next week, and he said, "Hey, I really want you to come meet Coach in person." And so we took a 45-minute drive down to Coach's office, and it was great. It was, for me, I was so much more adamant on can I trust you, and is this somebody that will tell me not what I want to hear, hey, you're going to win the Heisman. He didn't tell me that. he did tell me you're going to wait a long time. I've got a kid here that's pretty good. But I mean that honesty and transparency really resonated with me because I was always a guy that I kind of needed to see myself do it, before I had that belief in myself. And that's something that I've always loved about Coach. The way that he would almost create belief in yourself is something that not many people can do. And it's one of the things and reasons why so many people love him who play for him. But that's what he said. We were in the office, and he said, man, I think it would be really good for you to sit back, develop, wait a few years, and then let your career take off. And so anyways, I came back home, and I said, man, I think let's do this, So here we are.
From a player's perspective, you wanted to add something to, okay. From a player's perspective, Bryce, what did players, you talked about what your impression was, but what do players love so much about playing for Coach Briles?
Probably what you guys see right here. I mean, what you see is what you get. He is so honest and transparent and being genuine. He just is himself unapologetically, and people love that. People need that in this world. As a coach, or I mean, really as a player, you're 17, 18, 19, you're a young man, you're kind of flying the nest for the first time. This is who Dad is, most of the time. I mean, you're around these guys 24/7. And so, being that impressionable, people like him, you just gravitate towards. He has a fatherly figure to you. He always keeps you on your toes. Every time we kind of were laughing in the back, but every time I'd walk up, it's just a petty. You're like, God, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. I got some of my teeth. If I gained weight, I don't know. But he keeps it light and he keeps it fun, and that's what he made for, especially the program that we were blessed to be a part of. He made football fun, and you saw it on the scoreboard. You saw it, at the end when we were, had a lot of W's. So I think being a player for him he's exactly what you want your son to be, and one to be around, but someone to be coached by.
Let's talk about Petty.
See?
Okay, no, I mean,
He just laughs.
enough about me. But no, really the thing I'm most proud about for Bryce, and he didn't mention this, he's very humble, as you know, but he waited like 600 days more.
I think 1,000 more of that. Yeah, it was like 1,700.
Before he finally played. And a little unknown fact, which tells me a lot about him, is that really when he was a high school quarterback, they never had a winning record. I mean, he was at Midlothian, not a powerhouse, but the climb that he had, the way he's carried himself through all the years, and just, look at the guy. I mean, just fitting the mold of what you look for when you're looking for a D1 quarterback. Intelligent, powerful arm, great leader, tough. When I think about him, I think about a couple, three things. First thing I love about him that I've never told him, but I don't think I have, but we did a press conference after we beat Kansas like 56-0 in 2014. We'd been beaten by West Virginia the week before. It's hard to win in Morgantown, but they beat us. And anyway, so things were, we were like 7-1, 8-1. We were ranked up there pretty high until we got beat. And he goes to Kansas press conference. After the Kansas game, everybody's asking him questions. Hey, Bryce, what about the game? How did you throw for 480 yards at 7 TDs, whatever? And he says, thinking about OU. So the next guy asked him, well, how's your mom and dad? I heard they were at the game. Thinking about OU. That am I right, Petty?
Ready for OU.
Ready for OU. And so then the SID and the administrators were coming to me saying, Coach, come on now. You got to get him to answer these questions. These people want to know what's going on. I said, leave him alone. I like what he's doing. I like that. I mean, he's thinking exactly what we're all thinking. And we go out there and beat them 48-14 in Norman the next week. And then he makes a run against Texas in 2013. We didn't have to run, Petty, because we had such good running backs and receivers. We could throw it around too. But he made about a 7-yard run against UT in 13 on their sideline. that was an extremely physical run, and it showed me that he had the heart, had the guts, had the determination and drive to win. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna help us win. And so he made that run there, and that really changed my perception of him, because he didn't have to get dirty. Guys that are not extremely talented, extremely gifted, and I can relate, you have to get dirty. I mean, you gotta be tough, you gotta be mean, you gotta have all the intangibles that guys that are extremely gifted don't have to have. And, that's the kind of people, talking about recruiting earlier, that I look for. I wanted no sheets over silk sheets. I wanted guys that had struggled and come up through tough times. There's a whole table of them sitting right back there. Every one of those guys, I can tell you a story about them coming up, their upbringing from a walk-on to, being a second-team quarterback and starting in Waco, time they were senior, thank you, Lynx, out of necessity. But, they all got a story. I mean, just guys that have helped us win a lot of football games.
Bryce, I got to ask you, Nick Florence, and Coach, is this true? The year before Bryce started in 2013, in 2012, Nick Florence was the starter. And at the start of the year, you told him he needed to grow a beard.
Well, that was in 2012. Actually, the one, I know Nick's not here, I don't think, but there he is. Hi, Tricky.
Yeah, there he is.
There's a guy that can, he's used all his talent because he's a guy that utilized every bit of talent he's ever had. But really, a couple quick stories on Tricky Nick while he's here. 2009, we go beat Missouri. We got no reason on earth beating Missouri at Missouri. They're really loaded. They got good people. I was talking to a couple of guys a while ago about it, but that's where J.D. Walton got hurt, and Sam Sledge come in, snaps the ball at halftime, who has not snapped since August. But Nick pulled it off. He threw for about 400, and we beat him. And then in 11, Robert came back. Robert got hurt in 09, so Nick took over in 11. Robert started in 10, started 11. Robert gets hurt halftime, right before half against Texas Tech. Gets a concussion down there, close to scoring. He goes in the next play. I think we score. And then, the doctors tell me at halftime, say, hey, Griff's out. Like, okay. So Nick had played. Nick had 2 years left. And back then, which is a crazy rule, back then if you play at all, it costs you a year. And so this was like the 11th game of the year. And I go in at halftime and ask Nick, I said, hey, if you want to go, you can go. Now, it's going to cost you a year of eligibility. I said, it's going to cost you a whole year. And he said, Coach, I'm in. I'm ready. And so he goes in the second half. Those are about 180 at halftime. We beat Tech. Robert comes back the next week, and we win. That was in, what was that, 11? That was in 11, Nick? Yeah. I can't remember the last game. That was about the 11th game, wasn't it? Yeah, who did we play the 12th game? That's what I was thinking, yeah. They get all mixed up. Them or somebody. But anyway, so Trick comes in and does that. And then, in 12, he has really a fabulous season. I think we go 8-5. Not sure, but I think that's it. But we beat K-State. They were number one in America, beat them here. And, he just played masterful football. Really got a lot. But back to the beard story. So I'm not quite senile. I do remember the first question. I think senile starts with a C, doesn't it? But anyway, so the beard story, Nick, as I mentioned earlier before you got here, Nick, graduated salutatorian out of 763. And, he was married, clean cut, shaven, short hair. And, a lot of the guys on the team weren't like that, So I had to help Nick relate, to a Lynx Hawthorne, or some other guys that, were not quite as maybe gifted intellectually as maybe Nick. And God, so, hey, I love you, Lynx. You know it. But I took him to Italy with me, so we get that way. And Silas is here also. Thank you for being here, Silas. But so I had him grow a beard, let his hair grow long, had to clear it through his wife, and it was awesome. He looked great, and I think he loved it.
Coach, along those same lines, one of your other players told me that you preached 3 things: fast, fearless, and physical. They called it the 3 F's, so I don't know about the spelling on that either.
3 F's. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's different about that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So no, that's what we tried to really, hang our hat on. We were going to be a fast team. We're going to be fearless, because it reminds me of a little Rocky movie, when he's out in the alleyway with Apollo Creed, and Rocky doesn't have anything. Creed, you got everything, and they're standing on next to the car, and Apollo's, or he's getting ready to hit Apollo, and Apollo says, "Hit me, I'll sue. Hit me, I'll sue." And Rocky says, "Sue me for what?" So that's a mentality that we tried to coach with and play with. Because if you coach scared or play scared, you're probably not going to end up too well. So that, and then physical, it's a physical game. You got to win in the trenches, and we got a few old linemen here today, and D linemen, guys that are here that really, that's where I started everything in recruiting of quarterback and then O-line, D-line, because you got to have those guys if you're going to win.
Coach, you're known for the spread offense. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. How did that come about? Did that start in Hamlin in that playoff game when you were playing a real big team and wanted to change it, or where did the spread offense come from?
You've done your homework, hadn't you, huh? Actually, it did. I went to U of H, played for Bill Yeoman, Houston Veer, so everything schematically in my mind is based off of Veer. We actually, here a lot of our terminology was Veer related, the terms that we used. But I went to Hamlin the first year, and Hamlin's, Johnny Ham Jones, a lot of athletic guys there that could play, and we went 13-0-1. And I got to the game we got tied on back there, penetrations, first downs. And they were a little better than us, but we tied, and I thought, well, if we're ever going to, the deeper you get in the playoffs, you're going to get against better people. So I said, we got to try to do something different. So I had a good QB, a guy named Mike Howerton, a really good player, had a few skill guys. So we went, no back, went shotgun no back the next year. Went 14-1, got beat in the semifinals by Electra, had a guy named Charles Lott that went to Texas Tech. And, I can say this now since it's only been 45 years, but, if it had been a dry, calm day, we played them in Abilene on a Friday night, and it was a snowstorm, ice storm, wind, and we threw the ball and they ran the wing tee. So they beat us about a touchdown or two, but that's really where it all started. Everything's out of necessity, schematically and what you do as a coach or a player. If you're not strong, you get in the weight room and get stronger. If you can't jump, you do a lot of box jumps, so you're always working on your weaknesses, not your strength.
So, Bryce, I talked with you a couple of days ago, and you succinctly explained how the spread offense worked and what your game plan was for almost every game on the spread, and you just run people to death, right? Those defenses. So talk about that for just a minute. And your game plan was almost the same every week.
Yeah, I think we had 4 plays. Split V Novocaine, just keep running it. No, I mean, that was the great thing about what we did from 2010 to 2011. We came back, that off season, and then all of a sudden, Matt Hatter over here just said, "Hey, we're faster, we're stronger, and we got a QB that can throw it 80 yards. Let's just go vertical." And everything, kind of changed from, I felt like a lot of things were horizontal and, some misdirection and things like that, like we was talking about with the Veer. And then it was really, let's attack them in space. Let's spread them out. We were one of the first offenses that would put receivers literally at the sideline. And the whole point was to spread you out and beat you at your own game. And then we're going to play really fast. And our reaction is gonna be off of what you do. And so it kind of like I said before, it made football fun because it was simple and we were really good at it. And we repped it and we repped it and we repped it and we repped it. And so, yeah, I mean, those games, 2013, 2014, and really I think, to Nick and that 2012 team, there's always times within a culture of a team, especially with, a head coach, that the belief starts to become, hey, we belong here. Like, I think we belong here. 2012 really, that offseason for us really changed to where it wasn't just that we belong here. It's no, we will win and we will dominate. And so I was lucky and blessed to be around a lot of great guys that we were all in that mindset. The way that he was recruiting, the kind of athletes that he was recruiting, Coach Kaz, changed our entire weight room. The mentality that we had about being on the field and dominating. So it didn't matter if you were defensive guy. It didn't matter if I was a quarterback and never hit anybody. I wanted to step on your throat. Sorry, it's hard to get out of the mentality, I guess, a little bit. But like that is, football is a vicious game, and so sometimes there's not all positions that can be dominant like that. But his mentality into that locker room was you can dominate on every play, and you should. So anyways, yeah, we had a lot of fun game planning for guys, knowing, on Monday, Tuesday, we can't wait to get out on the field on Saturday, and that's what you want to be. You attack.
You guys were scoring 70 points a game in almost every game for the first half of the season and piling up leading offense in the country. And Bryce, you told me about, and Coach asked you about this, you guys had so many fast, good receivers, you just rotate receivers every play and wear out the defensive backs on the other team.
I will say one thing. One thing we did kind of uniquely, which, drove really football coaches crazy, NFL and other teams, colleges, is that if we're going to, and we kept, we just kind of split the field in half and let the quarterback read half the field, as much as we could, instead of going through 5 progressions, making the O-line sit there and block for, 3.5 seconds. We're trying to throw the ball in less than 2 seconds. So we're 1,001 throw, and what we do with our backside receivers, if they weren't involved, I'd just tell them, hey, just stand there. I don't care. They're gonna cover you because they're defensive guys. Defensive guys have a job to do, so they're gonna look at you and think something's up. But we kept our guys, fresh, because when their numbers called, I wanted them fast. You understand? I wanted them to be able to go and deliver, and I think it helped a little bit. But the guys at the table. I don't know who's all there. I see Levi. Just a quick story about 1 or 2 of them. Levi, I feel like he helped us win the game against Tech, probably in 14, took a punt back about, I think it's 82. Levi said 76. I'll say 82 yards with about 20-some seconds left in the half. Helped us win that. Clay Fuller's back there. Clay and I are the same age. He played a little baseball before he came in here. I knew his family. Actually, Kendall played with his cousin at UT. Just a great family, people. And when I found out he was interested in playing football, it was like, yeah, come on. I really think he was about 24 or 5 when he got here. What were you, Clay? 24, yeah. So that, mature guy, that's why BYU and Utah win, because those guys go off on missions, they come back. And they're 24 years old. But, so that, it helps. Maturity helps. And, but he, really, I was thinking about, a couple of his plays. He made a great toe catch against TCU, I guess, in 13 when we beat them up there. And then, really, the play I remember the most, though, is recovering the fumble against OU on the kickoff when we beat them in 2011, which kind of sealed the game. So, that was good. I know Bobo Blackshear's back there. Bo did something nobody can do. He sacked Mahomes on a 2-point play when we beat them 48-46, in Jerry's world. So that's pretty. Doc, I ain't got anything on you other than that your dad was a great guy, and I loved him. Love you. He's an East Texas guy that's got a doctor's clinic here in Waco. My only advice to him was if they come see you, find something wrong. Because it's the only way you make any money. If you send them out of here with nothing wrong, that they're good. And Koff, what a great stud, Houston area, good guy. Colin, went from a walk-on to being a 3-year starter for us, made great plays. Seth, Seth was just in line to be the next great quarterback. I mean, really, no doubt, paid his dues, waited his time. I think we were number 2 in America when he got hurt against Iowa State, and it just shakes you to the core because, you want to see a guy that can do everything. And he really never got the chance to show just really how good he is. I mean, we did some stuff with him that we didn't even do with Robert, Nick, or Bryce. We turned him because he's such a runner. Wasn't like Robert couldn't run, but this guy was, a big, powerful, strong guy. So we'd do a couple of series plays, counter options and stuff that you normally wouldn't do that Seth allowed us to do. And then I don't know who else about there. Lynx, we've talked about a little bit. Lynx couldn't even start at quarterback in high school. He was a second-team quarterback at Refugio, Texas. First of all, you're going to have to look up Refugio, Texas. There's a G in there somewhere, believe it or not. But he couldn't even start there, and we'd lose Chris we'd lose Seth, we'd lose Stidham, and then we'd lose Chris Johnson, against Texas in 15. And, so we have to play Lynx, because he's the only guy that, I liked him, so that's why I got to play basically, and but he just did a great job. We did have to change it up from the Texas game to the bowl game. The Texas game, we gave him an option on the Zorro, and of course he gives it, and if he'd have kept it, he'd have walked in and scored and we'd have won. So in the bowl game against North Carolina, sorry, Coach Fedora, I know you're here somewhere, but yeah, North Carolina, we didn't give him the option. You're going to fake it, you're going to keep it. We're not going to let you think, okay? But we had a great time in Italy. Lynx went to Italy. Pat Colbert was over there. Silas, of course, was a hero in Europe before we ever got over there. And those guys just did a great job. But, I love each and every one of those guys. And they're all Baylor graduates, and they're all great, great people. And Cody Carlson, I see sitting here, he's the guy who put Brad Gable on the bench who got inducted to the Hall of Fame last year. So I hope you're in it. Are you? Well, you put him on the bench and he's in it? Huh? Grant, you got to work for your man back here. I know you coached him.
Speaking of Hall of Fames, we should say, too, Bryce Petty is going to be inducted in the Baylor Athletic Hall of Fame next November 14th. Congratulations on that, Bryce.
Thank you.